So today with me, I have a very special guest. He's a dear friend. He's a mentor. I've grown up with him. I've seen him from a distance. We have come to connect and bond at such deeper levels. And he is a CEO. He's a husband. He's an entrepreneur. We are going to be hearing his story. And I want to welcome you. If this is your first time, welcome to the Sprout Podcast. And at Sprout Podcast, we believe that we are here to grow together, to thrive together, but also to inspire others. So if it is your first time, I would like to encourage you to subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel, but also wherever you get your podcasts from, you be sure to check us out on Spotify, on quite a number of platforms. So without wasting any other time, I want to welcome our guest. I want him to say hello to us, let us know who he is, what he does, what is he so passionate about. Yes, Mr. Opolot.
Wow, lovely.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure of mine to be part of your space, the Sprout Podcast. I believe that's a space that's hopefully going to revolutionize and cause to sprout the visions and ideas of many.
Surely.
My name is Charles Opolot, as you already said. I love to refer to myself as a creator, an initiator, and a visionary.
A creator, an initiator, and a visionary.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's really what I am passionate about. I could look back to many years, and I will confidently tell you that most of the work, initiatives, assignments that I have been involved in have really been assignments that have helped me keep in touch with either one of the three or a combination of the three facets that surround my life, or really a blend of everything. It's been about creating ideas. It's been about initiating them. Where I have probably not participated in the creative process, I've probably initiated an idea and said, you know what, I think we could do this.
And people have run with it.
Exactly. Or I have been very privileged to just be a visionary, see things from a big picture standpoint. So that's pretty much what I do.
Interesting.
I know it's just scratching the surface, but I think for now that will be
it's an honor. It's an honor to have you on this platform. And those are very ambiguous words. They are big words. You know, before we rebranded this podcast to the Sprout Podcast, we used to call it Big Dreams, Small Pockets. And the idea behind that name was that sometimes we are so ambitious. We dream big and bigger. And many times our pockets are quite a limitation. I would like to believe before you have reached that level where you've put an identity to yourself, knowing that this is who I am. I am Charles Opolot. I am a creator. I am a visionary. I am an initiator. At what point in your life do you think that identity took shape, where you felt confident to describe yourself as those three, under those three parameters? Is that something that came naturally? Do you have people that helped you identify that? Just elaborate a little bit on that.
Wow, that's a very interesting question. But to be fair, I think it's really been an ongoing journey for me. It's been an ongoing journey, and I must say that along that journey, I have witnessed the pain of creation, the pain of initiation, and the pain of carrying a vision. Because for many times you kind of feel like you are in a pocket or a vacuum all by yourself. But then you have to survive. So it's been an evolution of sorts. You know, what you probably will know from conversations that we've shared and whatnot is that I've had varied interests within the creative domain of stuff. I have been and still am a writer, a poet, and I've also been a spoken word artist.
I've known you as an instrumentalist.
Exactly, you've known me as an instrumentalist. Somebody has known me as a carpenter.
Can you imagine?
And then somebody will swear on their life that Charles is a social media expert. And then another person will know me as a web designer.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what the journey has really been about has been, look, allow yourself to just experience life.
Yeah.
Open yourself up to the full spectrum that's available to you as far as the creative space is concerned.
Wow.
So I have dared myself to learn, to grow. I have also been privileged to sort of carry the persona of the sort of person that's very sure that they will figure things out if they set their minds to them.
Wow.
So I have learned a lot through that. You fail and learn, unlearn, and go again. And then I'm not very good with asking questions, but I'm very good with asking questions introspectively. Within my mind, I'm literally looking at things, sizing them up, figuring things, asking the kind of questions that I think will help.
I'm going to trigger you to
exactly
take action.
So the triggers keep going off, and I find myself learning and learning.
Wow.
And I think in part it's because at times I do not quite know how to ask the right questions if I have to articulate them before somebody. But I kind of know how to ask those questions within myself. Very strange phenomenon.
Interesting.
So yeah, so to tie it off, the identity of creator, initiator, visionary is something that I think has been evolving. There's been a metamorphosis of some sort. And so today, as I sit before you, I can confidently tell you that perfectly typifies who I am by virtue of the journey that I have taken up until this point. As to whether I'll be a creator, initiator, visionary 10, 20 years from now, that is something that I can leave to fate as God would have it.
Wow. So it's like your destiny is sealed.
I would like to believe so. Yeah.
Very interesting. But and you know what? I would like for us to just have a backdrop.
Right.
You know, before you coming into defining your life the way you do, or even reaching that point in life, that pivotal point where you say, okay, I'm opening up my life to be able to experience things, to be able to allow myself to grow. I want to hear your story. How was it like when you're growing up? Did you grow up with both your parents? How was your... Because when you mention, you've mentioned quite a number of skills and how people could describe you. You reminded me of my dad. So some time back, I shared this testimony, how my dad would literally do almost everything. And to me, I wondered what exactly he did. Was your dad also like that? Was he doing all those things that now you feel like you're doing all that?
Wow.
How was life like when you're growing up?
First of all, here's the thing. My old man, rest in peace, Professor Charles Opolot, or Kurut. Senior. My father, interestingly, it's only now that I've kind of come full circle in trying to understand the kind of person my father was. We have stories that we've heard about their life growing up, my father and mother. You hear them accidentally in corridors of conversation. Sometimes it's just in passing, maybe as an elder is saying this and saying that. And I realized that my father was an academic through and through. I am very passionate about academics as well. and I carry a gift of teaching, which is something that some people will receive with such shock because they probably
they have not seen you exercise that.
Exactly. Now, many years ago, a story is told about my father and mother and how they were trying to, make ends meet very many years ago. While I think then, right around the time he was probably still a primary school teacher, if I am right about that bit of history. And the suffering was if you have a house and you have painted it perfectly and all the walls are well done, now their house was painted with suffering.
Interesting. What a description.
Exactly. Their house was very well painted with what?
With suffering.
They were in scarcity. My mother once told us a very interesting story that my father, I think, owned just a single pair of clothes. And that is the real picture of where these people started out from. And every day he would go on a bicycle to do whatever it was, and then he would go fishing, harvest the fish, and then sell the fish. They had a business of selling fish. You go, catch,
take to the market.
Exactly, take to the market, and that was it. And so in the evening when he returned, he had to throw his clothes off, and then his wife would quickly get to the
basin
to the basin and wash and hang them, and then overnight they would dry, so that in the morning they would take those local iron boxes, press them, the man would dress up and would attack the streets.
Interesting. Wow.
Now, that was it. That strongly contrasts, of course, with the kind of person he eventually evolved to become much later. But the interesting bit of that history is these are things that we were told. These were just stories that we had that, of course, were authentic, I believe, because they were being told to us by our mother herself. Now, later on, we only have just a little bit of memory about our parents growing up together, or rather doing life together, because eventually, as fate would have it, my mother and father would separate and kind of go separate ways and whatnot. So life as a family is something I remember in bits and pieces. And then life with parents living separately is something that then would later occupy the greater part of my memory growing up as a child and in fact eventually becoming an adult. So most of those things were then, today I'm going the other side. This week I am here. The school that I went to, it was so funny that I would have to leave from home to go to school in A level. Now, when I would migrate to where my mother lived,
you call it migration.
Exactly. Then I would have to walk a slightly longer distance because my mother was a little farther away from the school that I went to. Ironically, I preferred it there.
No.
So, but to the point of who I eventually became, I had an experience in my primary school, the boarding school that I attended, which to this day I believe was a very critical birthing point, perhaps, of what I have eventually evolved into today.
No.
We had an arts teacher in that school, very skilled and talented guy. And then one time we were very privileged to participate in preparations for the Founders Day for my school. And the art teacher was charged with the project of coming up with different items and concepts for house decoration, setting at the table, wall hangings, and so on and so forth. And I was one of the pupils that participated in that project. We were a number of us. I picked very keen interest. And I remember building projects with my own hands. And every time I looked at a project, I looked at a wall hanging. I was like, wow, that is my strength. You know, you look at table decoration, I don't know what, like, yeah, man, that is me. That is me.
I
have never forgotten that experience.
Wow.
Never forgotten that experience. So later on, I go through university. I could argue that I was probably not very sure what I really wanted to do. And this is one thing, looking back retrospectively, one thing I could probably say, it was probably not the best place that I would have desired to be at. And then looking forward, it's one thing that now with such clarity and confidence I can say, one thing that a parent wants to do is to allow a child room to express themselves.
Wow.
Because my spirit desired and sought after some form of expression. But then what I desired intimately was being stifled and curtailed by an environment that was not quite enabling. Because probably the old man thinks you should be doing this, but the little voice in you is seeking expression in something else,
very different,
and the opportunity is not there.
Yeah.
Let alone the stereotype around some of these things. In my years of school, believe me, it was I perceived it as very strange and weird. How can you go to school to study art? That was the mentality.
The mindset, yeah, you're right.
Like,
it looked like a joke.
Exactly. Like how it's like MTT. How do you go to study MTT?
When what are you going to become?
What are you going to become? Ogenda kuba ngoma. Ogenda kuba osigaranji. Like really? But look where life led us.
Interesting. You know, your story is quite very, very true. And many of us actually, at some point, I believe, can connect with you. You know, sometimes you go through school and you feel like you're not certain. You know, there are a few kids that really know what they want in life.
Yeah.
You find such types rare. Somebody knows that, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm doing this type of subject, and I want to apply for this type of combination. This is where I'm seeing myself. Now, some of us don't have all our thoughts together and plans before really going through the education system. We just stumble and walk over. You fall in things. You stumble into things. But it's very interesting. Time, the Bible talks about time being an answer of all things. Time answers all things.
Oh, yeah.
So as you allow...
Time is a vindicator of all matters.
Time is a vindicator of all matters. As you allow yourself to go through the process, things take shape.
Yes.
Wow, that is quite very interesting. If you've just joined us, you're listening to the Sprout Podcast. I'm honored to host Mr. Charles Opolot, who is an entrepreneur. He has, if you missed his introduction, it was quite a bombastic one, for lack of better words. He is a creative, he is an initiator, and he is a visionary. Yeah, so we're going to be diving into how he started his business and maybe try to reflect whether it is actually the first business he began, it is what he's running with. But before we do that, let's just take a quick break and be back.
Interesting.
President Mr. Opolot.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So I would like to believe that when you went to the university, I understand you did economics.
That's right.
Yeah, and you know, most of us, we are encouraged that you go to school, study and pass, look for a job, and then do life. Has that been the same story for your case? How has it been for you? Have you followed the same path?
I think for me, it's either I became a disruptor of the predictable paths of life, or life became a disruptor of my
of your would be straight path.
Exactly. Surely it has to be one of the two. No, but to be fair, I would probably not have thought that my life was going to pan out the way that it has. But I want to tell you a very interesting story. When I was in my senior 4, I had a very closely knit group of friends, very close. I remember one time with these friends of mine, we were standing at the school notice board. And while we were at that school notice board, we're just going on with our banter, catching up about this and that. And somehow the conversation of what we would like to do or to become later on in life came up in that moment. And I remember very closely, like it was yesterday, that as we were catching up, everybody kind of went on with what they wanted to be. One of my friends said, he was passionate about hip hop and rap, which, by the way, is something that I also have roots in. Very interesting. Oh dear me. So this friend of mine, he loved to rap and whatnot, and he said to us, "Man, for me, when I grow up, I want to be a hip hop artist." Okay. And then another friend of ours said, "For me, probably I would like to get a job, work for a little while, and then I will go off to do my own stuff." Then I remember saying, "For me, I would not like to be anybody's worker. I'd like to do my own stuff. I want to run my own business. I don't want to be anybody's employee." This was me creating my reality
way back
over a decade before I even got into
that place,
playing field. The irony, it's probably not an irony. The shocking bit of it is, each one of these guys that I was standing at that notice board with, they became exactly
what they said,
they pronounced
in
that conversation.
Interesting.
One of them, today as I speak, the guy who said he wanted to be a hip hop artist, he rose to the point of hip hop influence in Western Uganda that he became a household name in the whole of Western Uganda.
Interesting.
Like that guy, that he's the most thorough and grounded hip hop artist that I know.
Wow.
We used to have conversations those years when the Pearl of Africa Music Awards had just been launched. I remember, I think it was 2003 or so. There was a certain hip hop artist who was nominated, and I was the only person that knew the hip hop artist. Like, that's how crazy it was. And these friends of mine didn't know. They had never heard about the guy. There's an artist. I think he's called Lyrical G. He's now a legend, really. Nobody knew about him, and I told them, I know this guy, and I'm sure he's going to win these awards. They thought I was bluffing. When the awards came through,
he was on top of the list.
The guy won, and there was other artists like Navio. There was Lumix. There's a guy who passed away called Lumix. So I was deeply entrenched in hip hop as an art form. Very strange.
Interesting.
Anyway, so some of those things are the facets that sort of began to define what I would eventually become. I spoke that at that point. I didn't know that I was going to wind up
that way
as self-employed. I have tried employment before. I'll tell you, the only reason I did was because I was suffering after a project I was doing had collapsed, and I felt I needed a lifeline. So this is how I ended up
into that space
into
of
employment.
employment.
And I worked that job for 8 months. By the second month, I wanted to quit. Like, I was just not cut out for it. So, after 8 months, I said, I'm done. I quit. And then I went, took a little leave for a few months, I think about 1 or 2 months. And then somebody else got me a gig to do PR work for another organization. 1 month, I knew it was enough. I was not 1 month.
Interesting. I want to just pose a very quick question right there.
Yeah.
You see, sometimes people go to jobs they don't like, but they spend years, year after year. They keep whining, they keep complaining, they pass time. At the end of the day, just waiting for the paycheck. That at least the month is around the corner. Let's hold in there a little bit. What are some of the indicators that maybe would help somebody out there? Some of the indicators that probably could suggest that maybe you're not cut out for the employment space. Maybe you are an entrepreneur. Maybe you are somebody who could be able to start things, to initiate things, and see how to see them through.
Wow, that's a great question. Here's the thing, real quick. One, there are different types of people. Let me call them personas, right? And each persona has got a particular disposition to them. Sometimes we ignore or we don't pay attention to the disposition that your persona carries. As a result, you're busy trying to climb a tree because you're admiring the craft and skill of the monkey, and yet you are an elephant.
You can't.
That is supposed to be
grazing doing something very different.
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to be operating in a different domain. And as a result, I've learned a few things. I've observed a few things. That one, there are people who are initiators. By default,
they can initiate.
There are people who are carriers. They do not know how to initiate, but ask them to carry.
They'll carry.
They will carry until the word carrying changes meaning. They will carry the vision, they'll carry the organization, they'll deliver on tasks, you'll ask them to do this, they'll do, and theirs is just to carry. They're like a womb of a woman. They will carry. But it is the sperm that initiates
the process of carrying. Then you have something.
And then there are finishers. Like we have gone this far. We've gone 98 steps. We have 6 steps to go. We are at the tail point of this. Somebody needs to finish that. So there are carriers, there are
initiators, and then there are finishers.
I believe it's my considered view that carriers are probably a very sweet spot for people that want to be in employment. If your disposition is to be a carrier, employment is a very great place for you. Of course, you want to have a blend of these three. You want to be a carrier who also desires a bit of initiation and
to see through something, to finish the project.
To finish something. Now, if you are like on steroids for initiating things and you do not want to carry things, it's probably a good sign that, you know what, this thing of employment
might burden you.
Exactly. It might burden you because you are excited, you're enthusiastic about, I bath this, but you just can't see things through. However, a little caveat, you might be an initiator and probably not very good with carrying things through, but in case you have a facilitating environment, then your strength could also be an asset within that organization.
True.
The only problem will be if the space that you're working in, the organization, the company, business, you name it, is probably either so small that it will not facilitate your unique sort of persona, or if it's too big that it will not care, and all it wants is
just
results.
deliver on what we expect you to do.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, those are the, very briefly, it's a much deeper conversation, but really,
I understand.
in brief,
Wow.
they are initiators, they are
Carriers,
they are
and they're finishers.
Typical person you want is the person that will carry your vision.
Yeah. Wow, that is very insightful. I'd never thought about it that way. That we have initiators, we have carriers, and then we have finishers. I hope you're benefiting from this conversation, and as even we speak, try to reflect and see, are you a finisher? Are you a carrier? Are you an initiator? You know, when you are in the space of employment, sometimes there are policies. Organizations and companies have policies in play.
That's right.
To just help the human resource to grow, develop, and hone certain skills. How is it when it comes into the space of entrepreneurship? Because and even as we try to climax our conversation, but also be able to go into that part where you get to speak about how you started your business and how you've seen it grow through different phases. How is it for an entrepreneur? You know, sometimes entrepreneurship looks like a one-man army. You are the accountant, you are the cashier, you are the CEO, you are the, and we have a very bad kind of statistics in our country that businesses struggle to see their first birthday. but I would like to look at you as a successful entrepreneur because you're more than one birthday. How are you able to grow into that space? Because it's all about you being very deliberate. There are no systems that are external propelling you in certain directions. How speak to that area?
So first of all, it's been entrepreneurship has been at the core of my spirit for the longest time I remember. In fact, I shared the story with you of that primary school experience of creating art and whatnot. And then I shared with you about that conversation that I've never forgotten at the notice board in O level. There is one little one that I haven't told you about. Now, going back in time, in primary school, probably primary 6 or so, I remember my earliest memory of doing business was in primary 6.
Primary 6.
Exactly.
Wow.
Now, taking you back to the idea of initiator, I was just right there. I remember very clearly. I was just going on with my own stuff, and an idea hit me. I wondered to myself, is there a way that I can make some money? I was thinking, what if? And then I thought to myself, okay, I have a few things. I had Grab. I had margarine. I had sugar. Then I had a friend of mine whose father, I think, was richer than my father. And for him, he had biscuits and a few other nicer things than I did. So I talked to this guy. I tell him, you know what? I was thinking, can you bring your biscuits? I bring my sugar and my margarine. And then we do like this.
We do a butter trade.
It wasn't a butter trade. It was, you bring your biscuits, I bring my margarine and my sugar.
Okay.
We take a pair of biscuits and sandwich it with margarine. We sell at 50 shillings.
Well,
we take a pair, sandwich it with margarine and sprinkle some sugar. We sell at 100 shillings. Let me tell you, those biscuits sold out in less than 2 days. And by the third day, we were going to the canteen or kusubura to buy more biscuits.
To stock.
Exactly, to restock. We restocked, and then we kept on with a pattern like that.
Interesting.
Then, of course, one of us became the Judas of the enterprise, and this is how the business collapsed. Later on, in my O level, again I started asking myself the same question, and then I got into the business of transport. I started to organize transport. I'd never done anything like that before. I organized transport for kids as the term would be closing. So I just asked for permission one day because I was trying to figure how am I going to make it happen. I had seen guys, elders, guys that were ahead of us doing something similar, and I really liked the idea. So one day I just got permission, went out of school, went to the bus park in Ginger, got to the driver, discussed with him, agreed on a few things, negotiated. In those years, by the way, you'll be shocked, a bus to Ginger in those years was 900 shillings.
900 shillings.
900 shillings.
When money still had its value.
Exactly. A Costa to Ginger was 1,500.
Interesting.
A taxi was 2,000 shillings.
To Ginger.
Those years, to Ginger. So I negotiated, long story short, I was able to make a minimum of 1,000 shillings from each student that I transported.
Wow.
And then I arrive home and I have my stack of cash. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. Anyway, so to the question, I think you were asking how did I really begin? So for me, looking back, those were some of the telltale signs that probably there was something I had been cut out for.
Yeah.
And because my beginning itself was quite a bit of an evolution, because the real point that I kind of started interacting with entrepreneurship much later, forgetting about the experience of secondary school and primary school, was in my senior 6 vacation when I got into a chapati business. My sister, who was abroad then, lent me money. And I think it was about 150,000. Yeah, I did the mathematics for her. I told her if you can just, 150K. So she sent the money, very excited. I took the money and went and bought the equipment that I needed. And I started the chapati business. And then before I knew it, I got distracted and got into an organization that I started with a group of friends. So I've started a chapati business.
You have an
now
organization?
I'm running into an organization supporting street children. What kind of, no, what sort of support
what drama is that?
What drama is that? Now, while I was doing this, the other was doing. The chapati business suffered before long as a result, and then I focused on the organization. Then the organization suffered, and then I sat and I said, now what am I going to do? And then my sister, who had bankrolled my chapati business, returns in the country, and she was wondering what she could do. She had a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And then I told her, you know what? We could actually start a business. So in my senior 6 vacation, in that whole mix, I now became the brain behind the business that my sister funded, and I implemented 100%.
Oh.
Literally the budgeting, the shopping for the things and whatnot. We started a stationery business in my senior 6 vacation. I looked for the space somewhere in Wandegear, rented the space, looked for the carpenter who made everything, literally everything.
You gave your soul for it.
Exactly. So my sister and I started the business, and then I started learning how to type. Today, if you gave me a document to type, I will probably run through it in seconds, because it now just became a part of me.
Yeah.
I learned how to type, how to photocopy, how to word, and so on and so forth. That was in senior 6 vacation. Then that business suffered a hit, and somehow it closed. Then in my second year, I got back into the business of running a stationery. This time only that it was now me. No attachments to anyone. So I get into the business, and again, I borrowed money, 250,000, from the father of a certain friend of mine. How bold was I? I went to the man and sold him the vision. I told him, ABCD, he lent me his money.
Wow.
And that was the money that I took and paid for rent for a certain shop in Chikumi. I was paying 80,000 per month. The landlord wanted 3 months down. So I paid, And I had, I think, about 60,000 or so left off of that money. And I started. And the business started growing.
Wow.
When I started that business, because I had been through a number of businesses and they were failing, and I had become a laughing stock in my family. Yeah, every time they had, now Charles is saying this, that one we know.
He has his business struggle.
Exactly. Actually, one time one of my siblings said, "You're starting another business." When I started feeling the ridicule, that's when I learned the principle of shutting your mouth until things make sense. So I went into another experience of trying to start the stationery by myself, and I never told anyone about it in my family. Not a single
My
soul.
goodness.
Then the day that I opened shop and launched the business, that's when I broke the news. And they were all in shock.
They were all in shock. Interesting.
So later on, as that business was working and whatnot, I was making some decent money for my level. Because I remember very clearly, good days would give me returns of anywhere in the region of 300, 400,000 on a good day per day. One time I remember very clearly, I needed a computer because I felt, my computers were giving me trouble. The years of Pentium 1, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, Pentium 4.
What a generation.
My goodness. The Pentiums, a Pentium 4 was a
it was, yeah.
Workhorse.
It was our Avengers.
That was the gold standard.
Yeah.
So anyway, to just give you a perspective of how well that business was doing for my level then, one time I needed a computer. So I get into that work week, I start doing my work at my shop, and within 3 days, I had enough money to buy a computer.
Wow.
Yeah, like 3 days.
Wow.
And I went, bought a computer.
Interesting.
Then I even became a lender, by the way. I became a lender.
You started lending other people.
The people that were laughing at me, they started to come to borrow money from me.
would they bring back commission or interest?
That's a long story.
That's a story for another time. Wow.
So, to just tie it off real quick. So anyway, after that experience of the stationery that I rebirthed and whatnot, later on, I now got into the creative space, but in a different domain of spoken word poetry. So I joined a certain group and later birthed a group of poets. I was leading about 30 to 40 poets, and we're organizing events at the National Theatre. And then while I was at it, I realized I needed to have some sort of creative skill set. When I was running the stationery, I was a graphic designer within the domain of Microsoft Publisher. That was as far as I could go. But when I got into organizing events, I realized Publisher cannot be used to design a poster. And then I was forced to begin learning the likes of Illustrator and Photoshop.
Wow.
And so going into the space of spoken word poetry opened my eyes and forced me to understand that I had, by force, to learn how to do design work and creative work.
Yeah.
So I did the project, the poetry group, organized events, did a poetry, schools poetry. I called it the Grand Schools Poetry Slam. And it was the first of its kind in Uganda, by the way.
Wow.
Before that, we had recorded an audio poetry project, and it was again the first audio poetry project recorded in Uganda.
Wow. Now,
I felt, that thing of, yeah, man, I'm birthing this. I had that energy and zeal. Later on, I transitioned out of poetry because of a big loss that I suffered, which I'll not go into detail. And then I morphed then into social media management via the company that I worked at, which was I think it was probably the first proper social media management firm in Uganda. And it was led by a certain Israeli gentleman who was very, very intelligent and whatnot. So I began to learn social media management through him. I was also doing content writing and blogging, and I was doing sales and marketing as well at that organization. So when I learned the grips of social media, when I left, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this.
It should be part of your service offerings.
So I started out with certain two friends of mine with whom I'd been at that organization, and we started a company, a media company doing social media management services. And then I went, pitched to a client. My client was the first client we brought into the organization. A certain media school in Uganda, one of the most respected schools of journalism in Uganda, actually. They were my first client. I serviced that job for a while, and then I also did website design for them. So if you go to their website today, the website that school has, the URL was my work.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the social media accounts, I set those up.
Wow.
I was the one that set up the social media, and then I did the content for a couple of months. Then from there, I now started to evolve and support. There was a certain group that was doing a certain software as well. And they just loved and respected me. They thought I was the most thorough marketer that has walked the earth. So they approached me and they said, "We want you to support us." So I started offering marketing support to that company.
That team.
It was a young company and whatnot. And then thereafter, I felt within my heart that, you know what, I now want to go and hit the streets by myself.
Full board.
So, to be fair, in that whole evolution, I started as a social media expert, but social media work placed a demand on me to understand design. Because you are not going to outsource all the work.
You're right.
So then I was forced to now try to further what I had originally gotten a discovery of during the days of poetry. So I started to learn how to do design work, and then I plunged into design work and fell in love with it. Social media then took a backseat, and then I got into graphic design much more. And then as I got into graphic design, and then I evolved and got into branding. And then as I went by in 2017, I felt that, you know what, now I need to begin functioning and operating properly, like a proper company. So that was the year that my company, Kojena Corporation Limited, was birthed.
Wow.
So in 2017, I officially registered
and
Kojena
launched.
Corporation and launched. And then a year later, I said to myself, but why not? I went and rented office space, which was incidentally the same year I got married. What kind of suicide was I trying to tread on?
Building two brides at the same time.
At the same time. So Kojena was birthed in 2017. 2018, I rented office space, and then took the first bit of money that I had, traveled to Nairobi, and bought a heat press, bought an Epson printer. What else did I buy? And then I paid a very useless carpenter in Kampala here to come and furnish the office I'd rented. And he took my painful money. Then I bought a dead body for a printer. Like, those were the experiences.
I understand. But by then you didn't think of deploying your carpentry skills?
No. I was not yet confident enough. So what followed after that, I got the office and whatnot, and then I started. I was doing a bit of branding work, graphic design. One thing that I must say is that even before I learned how to fluently use the graphic design tools, I had an eye for quality.
For good work, yeah.
I could see, I had the ability to look at a design and just strip it down. But I never knew how to use
use the tools to do.
So I think that was a very great benefit for me, because then when I started learning the ropes of it, it was not a very steep, because I sort of had the mind to imagine and envision what I wanted to create.
Oh.
Much later, of course, Kojena has started. I get in there. I receive the baptism of fire. Things are not very straightforward, that I had lined. Then COVID came and it almost swept us away, but we survived and got through the COVID years rather. And when I got through COVID, then I left the place that I was renting, relocated home for 6 months, as I was trying to just observe and breathe a little bit, because it was crazy.
It was too much,
So coming out of leave for 6 months while working from home, I then God led us to a space that my office is at now, and we got that space, much better space for a number of reasons. A little bit smaller than where we were, but more strategic. It's also more expensive than where we were, but you know. Then later on, again, through the experiences of failure, trials, trying to make things work, things looking like they have capsized on you and whatnot, I received a very interesting idea again from the Holy Spirit, I believe, to birth another company. So through that, we then birthed another company that we got fully registered and whatnot, and it's existing. It's very much available.
Wow.
So like that's what the journey has been.
Well, it is quite a broad journey, and I know we have actually not yet tapped into the real core of this conversation. So for purposes of trying to conclude this episode, we might not go any longer than this, but I understand we are going to continue with this conversation. So we are going to break today's podcast right here. We're not going to continue any further, but there are quite very interesting things that Mr. Opolot has touched on, and some of those things I know you want to really be able to hear more details about, even ask questions. What I want to let you know, you who's listening to us, we have an online community. It is called the Sprout Squad. It's an online community where you are able to ask questions, you're able to engage with us, and we can even be able to respond, but also know how best to move forward. So, Mr. Opolot, thank you so much for such great detail, and what a journey. What a journey. I know in our next episode, we are going to really look into the birthing of Kojena. We shall, I think, start right from there, because we want to see how faith, how passion and resilience interplay within the growing of your brand, and how you've been able to overcome obstacles. What are some of the challenges that you've gone through? You'll be able to elaborate on some of those setbacks, I think, right from COVID period. And you'll tell us some of the secrets that have really pushed you and kept you going, even when sometimes there's a lot of negative energy around us. You know, sometimes when we are negatively attacked or we get words that discourage us, some of us give up. But you've been resilient enough to hang in right there, and not only just start just one company, but also be able to even see another. Wow, what a journey. I don't know if you have any parting remarks or shorts, because I know we still have you here. So you could just say to our viewers out there, and then until next time, we shall be able to reconnect. Is there anything else you want to, before we call it a day?
So it's been a great honor. Thank you for having me on the Sprout podcast. That's a great name, by the way. Sprout podcast.
Yeah, we are here to grow together, thrive, and inspire others.
And so, one thing that I love to live by is the fact that you do not owe anyone an apology for being ruthless and for being dominant, especially in your mind.
Wow.
As far as what you want to achieve.
Wow. Powerful.
Yeah.
That's quite powerful.
And so once you understand that the world and all that it has to offer is there for the taking, especially if you have the faith and confidence that it's well within your range, then you will go after it ruthlessly.
Wow. Wow.
So if there's anything I can say,
what a parting shot. What a parting shot. I'll not prolong this any further. Let's go be ruthless. Let's not let anyone dictate or mislead us to give up on what really God has called us to do. Until next time, see you then.